Meeting of the Akron Charter Review Commission is called to order. I will call the roll. Jim Simon.
Present.
Margot Somerville.
Here.
Barbara Brown. I can see her, don't hear her.
You have to unmute, Barb.
Since I can see her, I'm going to note her presence.
There she is.
Rana Matar. I can see her too. She's present. Pedro Avalos is not present. Matt Timbrook.
I'm here.
And Donald Christian. I heard something and I can see him, so he's here. And I'm William Rich and I'm present also.
John Blickel's here.
Oh, John, sorry, skipped you. That's because I was reading off the list from the minutes, that's why. Sorry about that. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the of the May 26th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I do have some corrections that are not very substantive, but I wanted to show them to you rather than just read them. Hang on just once.
Can't you get on? No, you can come behind me if you want to see it. I can sit here if you want.
In the paragraph that begins moving on to new business, rather than say we were presented with a presentation, let's just say we were given a presentation. In the next paragraph, the commission considered changes, etc. Since the first sentence says changes to Charter Section 106A, the next sentence should say the proposed changes, plural, would enable. And then a little later in that sentence, would eliminate continual credit for preference points for promotional purposes. Is kind of word salad. Why don't we just say would eliminate preference points for promotions? And in the sentence that begins, once hired, employees seeking advancement should compete based on merit and fitness. I think you mean only. They already were competing based on merit and fitness. And fix the word salad in the next sentence too, instead of a continual credit for preference points for promotions, just preference points for promotions, create an undue advantage, etc. And that's it. I'm just trying to make it read properly. I am going to stop sharing now.
Are they doing that first?
Are those, is there any objection to those amendments? If not, does anyone else have any amendments they wish to offer to the minutes? If not, all those in favor of adopting the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion is adopted without dissent. The minutes are adopted. The next item is chair's opening remarks. My only opening remarks are, well, let's get down to business. Now we come to new business. Charter sections 103, proposed 103A, 106, 110, 111, 114. And we'll take them, I think, in that order.
Okay, Stacy, you want to go ahead? She's going to be, you guys met Stacy last
last week, and she's going to go over these sections with you. She'll put up the sections on the screen. Two of the sections are really ones that have the majority of the substantive changes. The others are quite simple, so she'll go over these with you. So hopefully they will. Tiny bit. That's good. All right, thank you. Last week we talked about the way things were set up prior to the 2016 charter change, where the voters overwhelmingly approved the transition to a human resources department. Today we'll present proposals for minor updates to procedures and to clarify the role of the human resources department. Throughout the language in these sections, we're going to change the terminology civil service to human resources, just to make it updated and modern. We're going to continue to operate under the principles of merit and fitness as required by the Ohio Constitution. So that change is just more modern. The first section we'll review today is the current charter section 103 regarding the Civil Service Commission. This section talks about the qualifications of the commissioners, the makeup of the commission, the terms of the commissioners, appointments to commission, and the removal. Currently, it's 3 members, and their term is 6 years. The commissioners are appointed by the mayor with the approval of city council, and we're proposing the following changes. Again, changing the terminology from Civil Service Commission to Human Resources Commission. We're going to change the terms from 6 years to 3 years. We think 6 years is an unusually long commitment, and it might be difficult to find people who will commit for a 6-year term. And we're going to update the standard for removal to just cause. We're also going to just tweak a little bit of the language and the requirements, updating it to human resources. So here is a track changes version. You can see we changed the name of the commission and commissioners to human resources. We're adding that they should be persons with experience in human resources administration as one of the areas. It could be HR, personnel administration, public administration, labor relations, law, or a related field. So we're just expanding that a bit. The terms of the commissioners, we're again trying to reduce those to 3 years and stagger them so that they're not expiring at the same time. And then the second paragraph, we're just updating civil service to human resources. In the final paragraph there, the mayor shall have the power to remove any commissioner for cause. It's a common term after notice and a hearing before council, provided that 2/3 of the members of council concur. So we're inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance is very specific, and for cause is more modern.
Are there questions or discussion about these proposed changes?
I guess I just had one. Do you review maybe peer cities, or like moving from 6 to 3 is probably a good idea, but what's the norm in Dayton, Toledo, for a similar a civil service commission?
The norm is 6 years, and that's the way it's been forever. Not forever, since the civil service system was established.
The question is there term limits?
No, no term limits.
What's the longest a commission member has served?
I think Sid Foster was on the commission for over 20 years. I don't know the exact number, but it was a very long time. And he was a lawyer and experienced in HR.
He still is a lawyer, by the way.
Yes. He was a very good commissioner.
Is there the possibility to, if you are on for 3 years, you off for 3, could you be reselected or one and done?
No, they can be reappointed after the 3 years. They just get sworn in after 3 years. They don't have to be removed. And like I said, our last commissioner, even with the 6 years, he did not have a break in service during that time, 6 years, and then another 6 years, and then another 6 years. That's Sid Foster. We've had some very long-serving commissioners, but we just want to make sure if someone's looking at the opportunity that 6 years isn't overwhelming for them, and there's it's a very long term for a commission.
Other questions or discussion?
I can show you the final, the way it looks.
Are you ready to vote? If anyone wants more time or wants to discuss it, just let me know. If not, then all those in favor of the proposed changes to section 103, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proposed changes are adopted without dissent.
Thank you. The next section is a new section that we're going to discuss, 103A. This section will delineate the powers and duties of the commission and clarify what matters may be appealed to the commission. These powers and duties and appeals are referenced in section 71, 72, and 116, which we haven't talked about yet. But the Civil Service Commission is mentioned in those sections, but there's nothing clarifying the role and powers and duties of the commission that someone could just look up. So that's what we're proposing to do here in the new section 103A. The Human Resources Commission shall adopt rules for the transaction of commission business consistent with this charter. The Director of Human Resources or his designee will keep the minutes of the proceedings of the commission. The powers and duties will be to hear and rule on properly filed appeals of permanent employees in the classified service that have been subject to disciplinary action that result in the dismissal, suspension, or reduction in grade or compensation due to a disciplinary demotion of an employee. The commission will establish timelines to hear such appeals, and they may affirm, reverse, or modify the suspension, dismissal, or reduction in grade. They can also issue subpoenas to compel the appearance of witnesses and the production of documents that are related to the matter, and they're going to establish the meeting times and dates. The B section just clarifies that either the employee or the appointing authority may appeal the decision of the commission to the Court of Common Pleas, and that's pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 2506.
Are there questions or discussion about the proposed new section 103A?
You utilize the word documents, or you're going to place the books.
I missed the end of the question.
Document reads books and papers. You said documents, so you're going to change books and papers to documents.
I was just summarizing.
I guess my question is, would documents read books and papers?
I don't think we can hear your question. It's getting cut off. Can others hear it?
No. Don, I don't know, maybe try getting closer to the microphone.
Maybe.
I'm not sure what's going on.
Try typing it in chat, and maybe Nina can tell us what the question is.
Carry on, I'll come back.
Okay, one of the things that I noted in one of the next ones that we're going to cover, where we say production of books and papers, I would also suggest that we consider technology, because people are using their phones and things of that nature. So it's not books, it's not papers, technologies.
Books, electronic documents. Or just records.
Yeah, we could just say records. That would encompass any format of records.
Yeah, that's a better idea, I think.
Should we just say the production of records, permanent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less limiting.
No,
Did we get Mr. Christian's question? Was he able to get an answer to his question?
that was my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
I would just think the word documents would be all inclusive.
Okay.
okay. Well, does that mean electronic? Documents and records?
You want to say documents and records, or do you just want to say records? I don't want to.
Records
I'd
would
ask the
encompass,
professor, don't you think?
yeah, records would encompass everything. Documents wouldn't encompass, let's say, an audio tape or video recording. So I would go with the records. I can't think of what that would exclude that the commission would ever have occasion to subpoena.
Okay, we'll change it to the word records.
Other questions or discussion, comments? If not, are you ready to vote? All those in favor of the new proposed section 103A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proposed section 103A is approved without dissent.
All right, this next section 106, it's the Director of Human Resources Rules and Regulations. I'll just touch on these slides. If you want me to slow down, just let me know. On this page, you'll see the role of the Human Resources Department and Director, and the fact that they're establishing rules and regulations to provide for these bulleted items. The first is establishing classifications or positions and standardizing them. We're also talking in the next bullet on examinations for open and promotional examinations, public notice and time and place of all competitive examinations, and the creation of eligible lists. So these are all things that this section lays out. There are many more. Number 5 is the eligibility of candidates. 5B talks about the residency credit, the residency requirement that was ruled unconstitutional for classified employees. So by law, we can't follow this right now. And then 5C and 5D cover the awarding of preference points for residents and veterans. These two sections predate the section that 106A that we talked about last week. This was here before the new section was approved. Number 6 outlines the certification of eligible candidates for vacancies, which is currently the 3 highest scores. We talked about that with section 108 last week, talking about making that the highest 10 scores. Number 7 talks about promotional examination, including records of efficiency and seniority. Efficiency is really performance management. So efficiency would be a performance evaluation final score. And that score is currently 20% of their final examination score, which is a pretty big chunk. And then number 8 talks about transferring. Right now you can only transfer from a position in the same class and pay grade from one department to another. We actually have almost 600 job titles. The class is similar to a job title, and that's a lot. And we'll talk about it, but we want to put a little bit more flexibility in our process. And bullet number 12, this talks about investigating and keeping a record of the efficiency of officers and employees in the classified service. Again, that's performance management, or performance evaluations. Number 13 talks about probationary period. Right now, most positions have a maximum of 6 months as a probationary period. In certain situations, that could be 9 months. And that's a pretty short probationary period for a professional position or something like police and fire. That takes a lot to get up to speed with all the professional duties they have and knowledge they have to gain during the probationary period in the academy. And then number 14 just talks about other rules that can be adopted that are not going to be inconsistent with this charter and the merit system. So the beginning of section 106, we're changing the section again, changing any reference to civil service to human resources. And we're actually changing this section to the Department of Human Resources rather than director, because section 104 specifically refers to the Director of Human Resources. And this is more what the Department of Human Resources does. We're also adding more modern human resources terms and responsibilities in keeping with our goal of creating a robust human resources department with the authority and responsibility expected of a human resources department. In addition, in that first paragraph, we're trying to clarify that the Director of Human Resources has the power to establish and abolish new classifications. Again, that's a job description, and they allocate and reallocate positions in the classified service based on the duties, responsibilities, and requirements of that position. We in human resources, we do the research, we do the comparison, we work with the managers and the departments to make sure they have what they need to get their work done. And that, especially in this environment, things change more rapidly than they used to. And we want to be agile in responding to those changes. That second paragraph talks about basically our authority through home rule to implement our own policies and procedures rather than following state law, as our needs may be different than the states, and we can make changes and adjustments as needed. Finally, the last little line there, we're moving away from calling things rules and regulations. We want to be more, caring and human, and call it policies and procedures, or procedures and policies. So the procedures and policies, these are the things that we're covering in the procedures and policies. Number one, we're clarifying that it's HR's responsibility to manage the creation of positions, the assignment of pay, and the processing of promotional opportunities. We're really just changing the language, and then we're not going to have the commission have the sole power to create new classifications. Number two, we're reinforcing the fact that we hire and promote based on merit as well as fitness. So we just added merit and in the appropriate places in that section. Number three, this is a new bullet this will allow for non-competitive testing to be given under the direction of the Director of Human Resources to determine the merit and fitness of applicants for classified positions of a scientific, managerial, advanced professional, or advanced educational character. And this is common in city of Cleveland, Columbus, and Toledo. They all have provisions similar to this or even more broad. The Ohio Revised Code section 124.3 also has a statement similar to this. This allows for non-competitive processes for some positions that require a high level of knowledge or experience. A competitive examination is not effective for filling vacancies for positions such as high-level IT positions, managerial positions, or positions that require specialized scientific knowledge. And they may already have certifications or advanced education that have proven that they have this knowledge. But all candidates still must meet the eligibility requirements that we put out in the job description. And they may still participate in a selection process where they must demonstrate that they meet these standards, but they're not going to be ranked, and it's not a competitive process. It's just basically they pass and then they can be considered. And then number 4, it previously said for public notice of the time and place of all competitive examinations. And that does not work in our current situation because we don't know until we know how many candidates we have applied for the position. So when we post, we say, we'll let them know once we schedule the test. And then we have to find a location for the test. And communication is so much better now than it used to be, that we don't need to necessarily post for everyone where we will give the test and when. We don't want people showing up that day that aren't scheduled to be there. Number 5, this is the eligible lists, and we're just specifying that for other positions other than the non-competitive, these candidates will be in rank order of their standings based on their total examination score. So we just put the word rank in there. Number 6, we're clarifying that the Director of Human Resources has the power to reject candidates for deception, fraud, or failing to meet the minimum qualifications for a position. And also for other reasons that are in our procedures and policies. It could be positive drug test or some other reason that we have in our policies that he would have the authority to actually say you are removed from the list or you are no longer a candidate. 6B, C, and D, again, that's the section with residency requirement and the declaring of methods for granting veterans credit and residency credit. We're going to take out some of that language that is covered in another section, in section 106A. And we're just going to leave 6B to say, for declaring methods of granting preference points to the passing grades of those persons taking non-promotional examinations. And the rest of it is going to be deleted. Number 7, we talked about this last week with section 108. This is where we're going to update from the highest 3 scores to the highest 10 scores. Number 8, this is for promotional exams. Like I said, currently we use their efficiency credit as part of their final examination score. But we have 3 unions who have bargained this out of the process. Excuse me. Our police, fire, and CSPA unions have negotiated to remove this from the calculations for their test score. The process for all other employees is that final score is 20% of their grade. Variations of efficiency score happen due to different reasons. Employees could have different managers. They could be doing things in different departments. People could be competing and they don't have the same job title. They have totally different job title and role, and it's hard to compare apples to apples in those cases, and performance evaluation scores could be very varied based on those factors. So we want to remove the performance evaluation or efficiency score from that calculation. Number 9, this is the transfer. We want to open it up a bit and give us some flexibility by not necessarily having the employees have the same job title for the position that they want to transfer to. It has to be the same pay grade, but it could be a similar job title. As long as they meet the qualifications for the position, they should be able to apply for a transfer. That's what we're hoping. Number 10, this is provisional emergency appointments. We touched on provisional last week. This is a provisional emergency appointment, which is like an interim appointment where the mayor cites the need for a provisional emergency appointment, then HR will authorize some emergency appointments as needed, and they may be canceled anytime by the mayor. But a situation may be where we need to hire a certain type of employee to respond to an emergency, but we don't need them for very long. We'll only need them for a short time. And we can't wait for the whole civil service process to go through that to fill the position. We need them right away. Or it could be a position that must be filled and we don't have time to wait for the process, but we'll still go through the process to fill that position on a permanent basis while someone's serving as an interim. Here, we are just deleting from appointing officers. We really only have one appointing authority, that is the mayor, and we're just requiring performance evaluations for employees and keeping records of those. Number 14, this is the probationary period. We want to eliminate the maximum time limit of 6 months. This is not appropriate for all positions. And again, police, fire, and safety communications technicians, which are CSPA employees, have bargained for longer probationary periods to allow for more time to learn these very specialized and important positions. So people may not have any knowledge of being a 911 operator, that's what a safety communications technician is, or a firefighter or a police officer. They may not have that knowledge or background coming in, but it takes a long time and the academy is almost over 6 months. They have that amount of time and then they are with their training officer, and the process could be very long to develop the professional skills at a proficient level. We want to give them time to do that before we want to have to try to terminate them within 9 months because we don't know if they're going to make it. We want to give them a fair shot to get through that. Other positions, such as professional positions, they would benefit from a longer probationary period, most likely a year, because some things only happen once a year. They want to make sure they're trained in all aspects of their work. And 1 year is a common probationary period length. Number 15. 15, we're talking about the Human Resources Department is responsible for policies and procedures regarding layoff and job abolishments. We're just clarifying that, and that HR should establish procedures for these events. And we do have those, but we just want to make it clear here.
Just notice that layoff is singular and job abolishments is plural. Seems like they should both be plural.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make that change.
Can I ask a question? In the city's way of operating, is a layoff different than furlough?
Yes.
Yes, they're actually separated from, they're off our payroll. Furlough, they're still attached to the city. They're still on our payroll. They're just not working.
But they're being paid but not working.
Furlough, no, they wouldn't be paid.
So do you need to have furlough as a procedure and as an alternate in here?
Well, we didn't think of putting it in the charter. I mean, it's recognized in a sense. We've placed, for example, employees on furlough status when we have to put them off. They have been able to maintain the city benefits, but they, we're not paid employees. They're not considered separated like we would in a layoff situation. even in a layoff, you're still connected to the city and, through a maintenance of a recall list. But you're completely separated. And employees, are able to collect unemployment. Although I think if you're in any unpaid status, you would be able to collect unemployment even in a furlough, but
And the Ohio Revised Code talks,
distinct differences there, but.
yeah, the Ohio Revised Code talks specifically about layoff and job abolishments. I'm not sure that it refers to furloughs at all.
Yeah, but it seems like a good idea to include furloughs. Hadn't thought of that.
Is there a break in service in either category, furloughing or layoff?
Furloughing, if they're unpaid, depending on the situation. Layoffs, yes, and job abolishments. Job abolishments could mean that the person's job is abolished and we transfer them to another position. They're not necessarily separating from the city.
Right.
So isn't this section just saying that HR is required to write the policies and procedures? And if that's the case, shouldn't we expect HR to create the policy and procedures for furloughs as well?
We could add layoff, abolishments and furloughs. And then the city, and then have to make sure we have the policy written.
Yes. Yeah. We might have to talk about that because furloughs, there are many different situations.
Or you just recently, hundreds.
Sorry. I
Well,
mean,
this
all this would do is to say that
just does
Human
have-
Resources Department is responsible for establishing the policies and procedures regarding furloughs as well as layoffs and abolishments. Would there be any problem with that?
I don't see any problem with that.
Are there any current policies relative specifically to furloughs?
No, we don't have any specific policies on furloughs. We have specific to COVID-19, we have policies. We've had policies in the past for every situation that comes up, but in my experience, they're not all the same.
We've had a policy for voluntary furlough. It was adopted in 2009.
Right. Yeah, so each one was developed based on the situation in the past, but we could write a general.
Well, there wouldn't have to be necessarily general policies concerning furloughs if the Human Resources Department doesn't think that's a good idea. The point is, whatever policies and procedures there are regarding furloughs would be the responsibility of Human Resources.
Okay, so we'll just
I
add
think
that.
we would just add the furlough to that. Layoff, furloughs and job abolishments.
Okay.
Mr. Rich, can I take them back to number 6 for a second?
Sure.
6B.
Although I was thinking what we might do is when we get to the end, and I've forgotten now where the end is, we could just go back and just go through screen by screen and see whether there are any comments.
Fine, I'm okay with that.
So we won't go back to 6B just yet. Is that what you're saying?
Not just yet, but we'll get there.
So that was the end.
Oh, okay, that was the end. All right. So this was so long. Can we just go back to the beginning and we'd probably be able to go through quickly through most of the screens, but I just want to give people a chance in case they have any questions or comments about any of these items.
Next time we need a mouse.
Did I get it?
Okay, this is the beginning of section 106 with the track changes.
Okay. Anybody have anything on this screen? I'll go to the next one then. Anybody have anything on this one? Okay, let's go to the next.
On number
There we go.
6, are those methods of granting preference point known to the people who are taking these non-promotional examinations in advance?
Yes, we post those on the posting, when we post it on our internet, on our walls, any hard copies. It's all included in the announcement.
Okay. That was my question.
Any other questions on this screen? Okay, let's go to the next.
I had one on number 10. Has there been situations in the past where the city would have benefited from this? Like, was a specific instance, did that charge this to make sure that this was written into the new charter this time? Because it's probably a necessary power, but it is somewhat brand new. It's somewhat somewhat powerful. I was just wondering if something brought this to the forefront.
No, but we're planning for emergencies, and in the plan, we want to have the ability to do something like this. When this was originally written, I don't know that they did emergency planning.
How long is the emergency appointment for? Just as deemed necessary, or what if it becomes a full-time position? Then, due to the need, I'm sure nothing's quite thought out that far ahead. But is there going to be a process? Does that person just keep that job, or does it have to go through potential competitive
Yeah.
people apply for the job?
Right, provisional is just interim or temporary. They would have to go through whatever process for that position, if it's competitive or non-competitive, whatever. If it becomes permanent, they would have to compete with whoever applies for that.
I have a question about number 8. Well, when we're striking through the record of efficiency, is that, I believe I heard you say that was the performance evaluation, the performance appraisal?
Right. Currently, our performance evaluations are a numerical score, and the numerical score is average, and that average is part of their test score. And that's that's exactly what that is.
So if, I'm just trying to think this through to a practical manner, and I have to first say I did not read through this like I would have liked, because I didn't have the time. But if you have 2 people who have taken the test and you have one who has a lower performance eval because maybe they have some bad behavior than the other person, because of the number on the score, the one with the bad behavior would get it because you're not looking at how they performed in the previous job. Is that correct?
If they have a bad performance evaluation, the performance evaluations are available for whoever's selecting to look at, so they can take that into consideration. But we're not going to have that as part of the score. I suppose they could choose someone with a lower performance evaluation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were a bad employee or they had issues. Another thing that the hiring manager should consider is any kind of discipline that might be in their file. They can look at their file and talk to their current manager if that's not their manager, if that's not their employee.
Is that part of the protocol? Is that you expect that they have a conversation, like a reference conversation with the manager, that person's current manager? Is that part of the process?
That's not a requirement. It just depends on what the situation is. Sometimes for certain groups, everybody knows everybody and it's a small group. In a larger group, or if someone's transferring from one department to another, we recommend that. But a lot of times people know, and they check with the other managers and see what the work performance was.
What we're trying to do is take it away necessarily from the being part of the examination score, because it's not always indicative of the ability to perform another position due to their inability to perform one position, and not inability to perform it, but that because they received a score that may not have been, the best score, and to weigh, a large percentage on that doesn't always reflect this person's ability to advance and do well in another position. So while it's a factor and can be considered, and I think that your point is taken that it should probably be, sharing of records certainly is in terms of discipline and work record and performance being part of that should be considered as a factor. To have it tied into the examination score didn't really make a lot of sense for us.
So is seniority tied in? So I'm trying to understand that first line. Is seniority tied into the examination score?
Yes, seniority is, and that is common in other charters and the Ohio Revised Code. The common formula for seniority is 1 point for every one of the first 4 years and 0.6 points for every year thereafter until they reach up to 10 points. And so if we had only their examination score and seniority, we would take 90% of their examination score and add it to whatever their seniority score is, and that would be their final score. So seniority would make a difference in the ranking, and that's common.
Okay.
Are there other questions about the items on this screen? If not, you can go to the next. Questions or comments about these items? Okay, this was as I recall, this was the last screen, right?
Yes.
So,
Sorry, I
yeah.
just had a quick question. For item number 14, so what's happening here is we're removing any time frames as far as the probationary period altogether.
Yes. I mean, no specific time period, right?
Well, they would establish the probationary period as a policy matter. It's just, we're not setting a constraint in the charter as to their ability to determine what that would be. Like some jobs require a much longer period of probation to determine whether the employee is able to complete that job. So they're going to have to do that type of an assessment.
And what we're doing is putting that probationary period on the job description so that the employee is aware of what it is for that particular position.
So there still
Will
will
that
be
also
probationary
include transfers?
No transfers, they don't have a new probationary period for transfers.
Okay. So when they're transferring to a new position, they would not have a probationary period at all.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments about the items on this page? If not, I take it you're ready to vote on the proposed amendments to Charter Section 106. All those in favor of those amendments signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, proposed amendments to Charter Section 106 are approved without dissent.
Just a clean version here. The next section is 110, the certification of payroll. This section requires that the commission certify the payroll. However, they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. And the HR department actually verifies the payroll and ensures those employees who are being paid were appointed in accordance with the human resources provisions of the charter. So we are just proposing to change the certification by the commission to the signature of the director of human resources certifying that the persons named have been appointed in or employed in accordance with the human resources provisions of the charter and the policies and procedures.
Questions or discussion on Section 110? If not, I take it you're ready to vote. All in favor of the proposed amendments to Charter Section 110 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Those amendments are approved without dissent.
Section 111, it's investigations. This was specific to the commission to have the power to subpoena and require the attendance of witnesses, the production of books and papers. And so we are proposing that we add the mayor and the director of human resources as also having the power to subpoena. We do have pre-employment investigations and investigations into possible employee misconduct where those subpoenas are necessary. And the human resources director is there. He's involved in the day-to-day operations, and it's more, it's very much quicker to have him have the responsibility. And he would definitely review the situation and make a determination if a subpoena is necessary.
We can change to records again, books and papers.
Right, and here's what it would look like, but we can change, like we did before, the production of books and papers to the production of records.
Yeah, I think we should do that. Any questions or comments about this apart from that change?
I doubt this would ever actually come up, but what if the mayor thought one way and the human resource department thought the other? Is there a mechanism?
Usually they're not talking about an issue. The mayor may use the subpoena power for something that he is working on. Department of Human Resources, they would probably do it prior to consulting the mayor. If maybe the mayor could say that was inappropriate, but we don't have any procedures for that because it's not the way things operate yet.
Right, it's a pretty theoretical argument. So okay, thanks.
The department, just understand, the Department of Human Resources is appointed, the director is appointed by the mayor. They work under the direction of the mayor. So,
Well, and the director serves at the pleasure of the mayor, right?
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think any disagreements would be resolved in favor of the mayor.
There's a quick answer to that.
Yeah, and I guess the mayor would write those procedures. So the final version would look like this, except for books and papers would be records.
Any other questions or discussion on section 111? All in favor of the proposed amendments to section 111, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Section 111 is approved. The amendments to section 111 are approved without dissent.
Okay. Salaries, section 114, salaries and appropriations. This is just updating the commission name to Human Resources Commission and the commissioners to Human Resources Commissioners. And also we're carrying out the duties and responsibilities defined in the charter instead of civil service positions or provisions. We're just saying the charter.
Any questions or discussion on section 114? If not, I take it you're ready to vote. All in favor of the amendments to Charter Section 114, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the proposed amendments to Charter Section 114 are approved without dissent.
So the final slide is just a listing for you of sections that we are not proposing any changes to. Except for this one.
Okay. Unless someone feels compelled to propose changes to one of these sections.
I just need to be honest. I have not looked at these sections, so I will need to look at them.
Go over next.
Okay. This is not your last chance. All right. I think that completes our work for today. And the mayor thanks you.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
would it be possible to get this kind of material more than 24 hours before the meeting?
Yeah, we've discussed that. I think the commitment now is to get them out on Friday afternoon. Is that right?
Yes, we were discussing that. We saw your email. I wanted to, let us come at the meeting today and discuss it. And we will, just so you understand, what happens is once the meeting is completed today, for instance, we have between now and the next meeting to get the minutes, the agenda, and then prepare the PowerPoint for all of you. So it's with everything else, it's just taking a little time, but we're going to try to get everything completed by Friday and get it for you for the weekend. So that you have it before, well in advance. Is that helpful?
Well, it is. I think it's a function of how much reading material there ends up being. When I opened my email first, it looked like there was going to be a lot. When I went through various elements, really this only one section had the most substantive.
Yeah.
So I was probably overreacting to the content, but if we're going to have significant amount of content, Friday would be nice. Otherwise, 48 hours is fine for me.
Okay, yeah. Our goal is Friday, so you
Yeah.
have time to review. I understand.
I'm reading everything regardless, so a little bit more time would be helpful. I think it's incumbent upon me as a commissioner to read everything that you said. Obviously, if you send it timely fashion.
Okay, I kind of lost what you said. I think I heard what you were saying. I understand you were saying you were reading everything and thoroughly, so you didn't want it to have enough time. So I think that's what you said, so. Okay.
Guys, would you like me to stop the live?
Yeah.
Well,
After adjourning, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
we'll adjourn.
Until
We'll adjourn.
Okay, perfect.
We'll adjourn first. Anything anybody else wishes to say before we adjourn? If not, unless there is objection, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Now you may stop the live.